The National Hurricane Center has already named the first 5 storms of 2019: Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dorian, and Aaron. Luckily, none of those storms will likely even come close to causing the death and destruction of the Great Gulf Hurricane which hit the Texas city of Galveston on September 8, 1900. A hurricane which killed an estimated 10,000 people and remains the greatest natural disaster to ever strike the country. I had a chance to speak with Today Show anchor and weatherman Al Roker about that devastating hurricane, which he dramatically chronicled in his book, The Storm of the Century. I began our conversation by asking Al how the Great Gulf Hurricane first got on his radar.
I was thinking about Sandy, but I started to research other storms that had happened. And I had been in Galveston in 2008 when Ike hit, and people always talked about the 1900 hurricane. But then when I gathered this research and started to look, and I kept thinking, this can't be right. This can't be the deadliest. Oh my gosh. And so I thought, this is something that could be kind of interesting. And there was a Cuban connection, and there was all this going on that I thought made it really resonate with today. And so I hired a great researcher, a guy named Bill Hoagland, to find what he could for me. And when I had it laid out in front of me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the story.
Mm-hmm. So what made the storm so devastating? Was it the strength of the storm? Was it the limits of the meteorological science at the time, or was it human folly?
It was a combination. It was really a combination of all those three that you really point out so well, because it was, first of all, it was a monster storm, huge storm. It was a Category 5 storm. Came on shore with winds of over 200 miles per hour, seas of anywhere from 10 to 30 feet high. But there was also human hubris. There was hubris involved, because at the time, the preeminent forecast capability was not in the United States, but was in Cuba. And they actually forecast this storm to come through the Caribbean, out into the Gulf, and hit somewhere within 100 to 150 miles of Galveston, Texas. But a petty bureaucrat named Willis Moore, who was running the U.S. Weather Bureau at the time, was in cahoots with the head of the War Department. They didn't feel, there were political tensions and intrigue with Cuba. Oh, wow, that's never happened again. And so they cut off Cuba telegraphically from mainland U.S. So that forecast never got out.
They never got out.
Never got out. And the prevailing thought at the time in the U.S. was that storms of this magnitude wouldn't hit the Gulf because there was a natural curve. So you put those three things together, and they were doomed.
The storm didn't discriminate. It killed everybody, black, white, poor, rich. But that after the storm, it showed that the city itself wasn't so unbiased.
Right.
How?
Well, in the beginning, I mean, sadly, over 10,000 people died, lost their lives in a night. And when the sun came up, the downtown, the survivors opened their doors to a living hell. I mean, there were thousands of corpses lining the streets, stripped naked from the power of the wind and the water. So how do you get rid of them? Well, they thought, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to conscript every able-bodied black man to help load bodies onto barges and take them out about 16 miles, force them to do this, and then toss them over the side. Unfortunately, they came back in. They realized they didn't have enough people, so now they had blacks and whites working together, the first integrated workforce, really, of any magnitude in Galveston.
What lessons did we learn about predicting storms from Galveston?
Well, I think that, again, the main thing is we have to learn that we are not the masters of our domain. This is not our, even today, I mean, we've come a long, long way. You look at Sandy, and the forecast for Sandy was spot on. But the devastation that it wrought, because we have not prepared properly for these storms that are going to be happening more.
So what have we learned from Sandy, and what have we not learned from Sandy?
Well, I think what we've learned is we really need to harden our infrastructure against these kind of storms, because they're going to be happening more and more. And as sea level rise happens, our shorelines are going to become more and more vulnerable. And so many millions of people are concentrated along especially the East Coast down into the Gulf Coast, where we're most vulnerable. But we've also got to learn. We also have to look at the fact that we have to make some hard choices about where people live. I think it's or how people's properties are insured. because these are going to happen again and again.
All right, Al, the book is The Storm of the Century. The subtitle is Tragedy, Heroism, Survival, and the Epic True Story of America's Deadliest Natural Disaster, the Great Gulf Hurricane of 1900. It's an intriguing read. Al, thank you so much for joining us.